Today I'm trying 3 new sheet pan recipes to see if these sheet pan dinners are actually worth the hype. All right, first up, I wanted to start off simple, so I chose this recipe from Andrew Bernard of the Nard Dog Cooks. Like, just look at this deliciousness. This looks amazing. And the recipe is also pretty straightforward, which I like, and doesn't have a lot of complicated ingredients. So we're just gonna need some broccoli, snap peas, and tofu, and that's pretty much it for the pan portion of this meal. Now, I already washed and chopped some of these items on my Sunday prep day, so now this whole meal is gonna come together even faster, which I love. But first things first, we actually need to get our oven preheated. We are gonna turn it on to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we are going to prep our tofu. So actually, a really good hack for tofu is to freeze it first. I buy my tofu from Costco, and then as soon as I get it home, I just pop it into the freezer, and then you can just defrost the frozen blocks on your countertop or in the fridge overnight. And what this is gonna do is it's going to help you wring out extra water from the tofu, which is then in turn going to help the tofu soak up even more sauce or marinade. And this is also going to eliminate the need of anything like a tofu press. Just using this technique alone is going to get you a firmer, more meat-like texture to your tofu. However, if you haven't frozen your tofu, that is totally fine. This is actually just a regular block of extra firm tofu that has been in my fridge. And you'll see when I open it, there is actually still some water in the package. So just pour that out and you're good to go. Now, for extra firm tofu like this, I personally don't use a tofu press, even if it hasn't been frozen. I just don't find it necessary, but you can if you'd like to. And then we're just gonna cube our tofu and toss it with some cornstarch and soy sauce, and then spread those cubes out onto our baking sheet. And I personally like to use parchment paper on my baking sheet for a little bit of an easier cleanup. Next, we'll just toss our veggies into the same bowl, add a little bit of seasonings to those, and then add them onto the baking sheet. And so we're just gonna pop everything into the oven, and then that's pretty much it. Like, how easy is this recipe so far? So now that that's baking, we are gonna start on our sauce, which is gonna go on top of our tofu and veggies. Before we do that, I just wanna make a quick rice to go alongside. Very important, always rinse your rice. Make sure you actually do a rinse 3 times, and that's gonna help you get rid of the excess starch on the rice grains and actually give you a fluffier rice. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of quinoa into mine. I've found with this rice and quinoa blend, you don't even notice that the quinoa is there, but you get all of those health benefits from it. So we'll just add about a half a cup into here and then add in some water. And I like to do a little bit of frozen corn on top as well, just to boost up the veggie content of this rice. And then we'll just add everything into the Instant Pot and get started on our sauce. Into our saucepan, we are just gonna add some soy sauce, water, maple syrup, rice vinegar, ground ginger, and garlic. And then bring that up to a boil. And once it's boiling, go ahead and add in the cornstarch slurry, which is just cornstarch mixed with water. And then after a couple more minutes on the stove, our sauce is basically ready, which is perfect timing because our veggies and tofu are done baking as well. Just look at how amazing these look. I like to test the tofu a bit, and if it needs a little bit more time in the oven, just pop it back in for a few more minutes. Okay, so the recipe actually calls to toss everything in with the teriyaki sauce. So we're just gonna mix everything up in this bowl. And then I'm just gonna serve up a plate with our quinoa rice mixture, which is also done cooking. Just go ahead and give that a little fluff and plate it up. You guys, oh my gosh, this turned out so well. Really delicious, just the perfect amount of sauce and flavor. But honestly, my favorite part of this meal was actually how easy it was and how meal prep friendly this is. The sheet pan part itself, of course, you could easily double it, make 2 sheet pans at the same time, and then you would have meals set for the next few days. And then the sauce as well, super easy to make a larger quantity. And if you have any leftovers, this sauce actually freezes really well. So for all of those reasons and the fact that it was delicious, I'm gonna give this recipe an 8 out of 10. I love, love, love this first one so far. So easy and so yummy. Okay, our next recipe is going to be a sheet pan gnocchi. Now I have to be honest, when I first saw this recipe, I was like, what? You can just put gnocchi in the oven like that without boiling them first? I am just shocked that this actually works, but I have been seeing these recipes and different variations of it everywhere lately, so I need to give it a try for myself. So this recipe is also pretty simple in terms of ingredients that we need. It's basically just gnocchi, tomatoes, onion, garlic, and a bit of tofu. So first, of course, let's preheat our oven to 400 degrees. And then we're just gonna chop everything first. We need to chop the onion, garlic, and tomatoes. And then again, we're just using our parchment paper for an easier cleanup. And then we'll go ahead and take our package of gnocchis and just spread those out on our sheet pan, and then add on there the tomatoes, onion, and garlic. And then we'll just crumble a bit of tofu on top, which I love that this recipe includes the tofu because it's just another little protein boost and very low effort. And then we're just gonna add our seasonings, which are very minimal for this recipe, which I do love in terms of simplicity and easiness, but I'm just wondering how this is gonna turn out. Like, I kept checking the recipe to make sure I'm not missing like a sauce or anything, but no, we basically just need some red red wine vinegar and a bit of salt and red pepper flakes. And then we're gonna toss everything together with our hands. Now I have to tell you, I am fighting everything in me not to add in like a drizzle of oil or something to make it a little bit saucier, but I do want to follow this recipe pretty much as it is originally written. And so that is it for seasonings other than our olives. We're going to add a little bit of olives. I'm using green olives today because that's what I have on hand. And then we'll just pop the whole thing into the oven. Okay, and then we're going to set our timer for 30 minutes. And now while that's baking, you can go ahead and do any other prep work or wash up your dishes, which to be honest, there weren't many, which I love. Or you can simply put your feet up and relax because your dinner is almost done. And then once everything is done baking, let's go ahead and take it out of the oven. It smells honestly delicious. I love how the tofu got a little bit of browning on it, so you're gonna get some crispiness in there. Now, I completely forgot that this recipe calls for spinach, so I am not gonna add any on mine. I do think it's gonna be lacking in veg a little bit, but that's okay. We do have some basil to add onto the top. So let's go ahead and plate this up. I'm going to add some chopped basil as well as some vegan Parmesan cheese. And let's go ahead and give this a try. Okay, that's intriguing. That's really interesting. I don't know if it's the brand of gnocchi that I bought, but mine has like almost like a sourdough essence. Maybe that's the red wine vinegar adding a little bit of tartness, which I really like actually. I mean, the flavors are good. I really like the olives and of course the basil on here. Like basil makes every pasta better, am I right? Now, I do feel that the gnocchi is a little bit dry, which makes sense because there isn't like a sauce on it. And that is kind of my only complaint about it, is that it's just a little bit dry overall. It's kind of missing that saucy pasta feel. So overall, I would probably tweak this before I make it again, but I do see myself making gnocchi in the oven again in the future. But overall, it is good and it was super easy to make. So I'm gonna give this one a 6.5 out of 10. The only other thing I would say for this recipe is that I didn't feel that it was great for meal prep. I did reheat this a couple of days after I made it, and in the microwave, the gnocchi got a little bit more dry. So I do think it's one of those dishes that if you did want to reheat it later, maybe just add on a little bit of red sauce or something to add a little moisture back in. But considering how easy it was to just throw everything together, I do think that this would make a very viable weeknight dinner option, perfect for if you forgot to plan something and you just need something really quick. And then our last sheet pan today is hopefully going to be a fun one. You guys, just look at this recipe from Carly of Plant U. Like, does this not look epic? Okay, so for this recipe, of course, we are going to need some tortillas, as well as some beans, lettuce, onion, tomato, vegan cheese, and some taco seasoning, which I did not happen to have on hand. So I just made my own, which is really easy. Let me show you how. We're just gonna combine some chili powder, ground cumin, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, oregano, salt, and pepper. But if you don't have all of these spices on hand, go ahead and just buy a taco seasoning from the store. That is totally fine too. Okay, and now we're just going to chop everything a bit. I have most of our veggies prepped, but we just need to chop it a little bit smaller for this recipe. Now I'm using up what I have in the fridge already, which I always encourage you to try and do. So like the original recipe doesn't call for cilantro, but I do have some already washed, and I'm sure it will be delicious in here. So let's go ahead and just chop some up and we'll add it in. And now the original recipe does call to heat the beans with the seasoning on the stovetop as you kind of mash them, but I think we can get away with just doing it by hand in a bowl so that we don't have to clean another pan. Honestly, the less dishes you have to do is always the way to go, in my opinion. So we're just gonna add our black beans into our measuring cup and then add in our taco seasoning and just give it a little mash with the fork. And now we're gonna lay out our tortillas onto our sheet pan. I think this is going to be the most complicated part. Not that it's difficult, but you just wanna make sure that everything is evenly spaced and that the bottom is fully covered. And then we'll just add our beans, all of our veggies, and our vegan cheese, and then add one tortilla in the middle and carefully fold everything up. And then I'm just gonna add one more sheet of parchment paper here because we are gonna put one more pan on the top. And oh my God, you guys, I totally forgot the tortilla chips, which you are supposed to add before baking this. But no worries, I'm just gonna add them on real quick and then put this whole thing back in the oven. And now that's gonna bake for 20 minutes. And meanwhile, go ahead and get together any kind of dipping sauces that you want for this. You could make a guacamole, spicy cashew cream, maybe some salsa. I'm just gonna do a little bit of guacamole and spicy cashew cream for mine. And so now our crunch wrap is ready. And you guys, just look at how amazingly delicious and crispy this looks. Let's go ahead and cut this up and we will try it. Okay, I personally don't think that the crushed up tortilla chips were even necessary, and if I had forgotten them, it would have been fine. And then the only other thing that I feel like is missing on mine is I didn't add any like hot sauce or vegan sour cream before I baked it. and I think that would have been nice mixed in. I probably would have done a layer of beans, then a cashew sour cream, then the vegan cheese, and then the rest of the toppings. And that would have given it a little bit more flavor. But other than that, the convenience and ease of this was amazing. Like for a party, these would be perfect to serve, or even just for a weeknight dinner. I mean, it was pretty easy to whip together. So I'm gonna give these a 7.5. I think they will be an 8.5 or 9 when I get the flavorings just the way I like it. But overall, super easy to make and really tasty. So definitely will be making these again. Okay, so I did want to try reheating these in the toaster oven, and they actually reheated surprisingly well. I put them in the microwave first for about 60 seconds to reheat the filling, and then into my toaster oven for a few minutes just to get them nice and crispy again, and it worked really well. I wouldn't say they were as good as when they first come out of the oven, but definitely doable for a day or two of leftovers. Honestly, I'm just super excited that these actually turned out well, and I think there's a lot of possibilities here with different ingredient variations and just different ways to customize them. So let me know in the comments which of these you would want to make first. And if you come across any other amazing looking sheet pan meals you want me to try, leave it down below, or of course you can also DM me the recipe on Instagram, and I will see you in the next one.